using these drugs without to me, a supervised medical professional that's guiding you in terms of what you should be taking on top, how you should be exercising, how you should be, looking at metrics of fitness and longevity, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and so is the person that's just giving it to you.
If someone has a problem with substance use disorder, please call One Call Placement. That's 888-831-1581. And if we can't help you, we'll make a referral to someone who can. One Call Placement is affiliated with Carrara Treatment Wellness Spa and One Method Treatment Centers.
Today I'm with Dr. Kenneth Spielvogel, Senior Medical Officer at Carrara Treatment Wellness Spa, to talk about something a lot of people in addiction and mental health are watching closely: GLP-1 medications. These drugs were created for diabetes and weight loss, but early research shows they may also reduce cravings and relapse risk. With major new deals dramatically lowering their cost and expanding access, this could become one of the most interesting developments in addiction treatment. Dr. Spielvogel is here to help break down what's real, what's emerging, and what still needs to be proven. Dr. Spielvogel,
how are you, Richard?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm really happy to be here.
So the first thing I want to say is 2 years ago,
right?
Okay, when Carrara started, you told me about the GLP-1s and how it worked for addiction and limited cravings, and I laughed in your face.
Yes, you did. You weren't the only one.
Right. And today I want to say that I was wrong. You were right and I was wrong. And I apologize.
This is recorded, right?
It is.
Sweet.
Listen.
I mean, look, people looked at me with a third eye. When I said there's a medication that we can use that absolutely reduces craving. There's not great data to support it right now, but there's plenty of things that we do in medicine.
But it doesn't matter what the data is, because I was smoking 15 Cuban cigars a day, and now I got to struggle to smoke 2.
Poor Bobby.
I know. I just can't. I mean, you took the last thing I had, that and food, and you took that too. You took everything from me.
Thank God it's only those 2. It could be worse.
Actually, you're dating the mother of my children, so you took her too.
Oh, there we go.
Well, you brought
What
it
was
up.
that? Was that 48 seconds in?
Hey, dude, you're a better man than me, clearly.
Stop.
All right, so go on.
Go on where? Where would we like to go?
I mean, look, this is the GLP-1s are, right now I'm using it, right? You had me using it for my cholesterol and my blood pressure, right? Okay. Amongst other things.
Because you want to look sexy. You wanted to lose weight.
Okay. And I do, and I look very sexy. Here's the problem. It works so good that I'm on an ice cream diet. Literally. I've got a 6-pack, and all I've been doing for the last week is eating ice cream.
That craving for sugar, yeah.
Well, I mean, so it clearly doesn't. But I'm looking great, and I'm happy as a clam. But I know it's hurting me. I know it's going to end up harming me long term.
So look, that's one of the biggest concerns. I liken this revolution to Botox a little bit, in that Botox came out, wrinkle reduction, all the facial rejuvenation stuff. And all of a sudden it went from MDs to nurse practitioners to guys with their baseball hats backwards injecting people. So the same thing right now is going on with these medications, and people getting them over the internet and just getting a drug and injecting it. It's literally, it's piecemeal medicine, and I'm totally not cool with it.
How did GLP-1 medications even end up in the addiction conversation in the first place?
It's a good question. So, Ozempic, which was really the first, let's answer this question. Why are we injecting a drug once a week versus just taking a pill, right?
Okay.
I mean, why wouldn't we just take a pill? The problem was with the early versions, the oral versions, is that the absorption in the intestine was really variable. So if you ate anything, you had to be fasting. You couldn't eat for at least 30 minutes afterwards. You had to take it at the same time every day. How many people can do that? Plus, if you're going to think about the idea of using it in addiction and recovery, people being on a regimented schedule of taking medications when they're really just starting to piece their life together, unless they have an assistant that's giving them the medication on time.
It's never happened.
It's not happening. And most people are super non-compliant when it comes to oral medications. So the idea with compliance, with getting people to take a medication and have it be reliable, the less frequent you have to use it, the better.
Got it.
Okay, so an injection once a week, a good start.
Okay.
And what they saw was with people using Ozempic, was they reported that they just had not only like feeling fuller, all metabolic numbers looking better, improved insulin resistance, lowering their hemoglobin A1C, improving their cholesterol panel, maybe even a secondary effect of lowering blood pressure, is that they had less craving for food. And then when you looked at obese, alcoholics, opioid addicts in particular, you saw that they reported less desire to use, less desire to drink, less desire to smoke. So that's
what's happening to me. But on the Zepbound, because the Ozempic made me nauseous. What's the difference between Ozempic and Zepbound? And why was I having such a hard time with the Ozempic, but the Zepbound is not a problem at all?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that it's a complex answer. First of all, the Zepbound, which is tirzepatide, is a GLP-GIP receptor agonist, where Ozempic, which is semaglutide, is just a GLP agonist.
Man, can you dumb that down for my
So
audience? How about dumbing it down for me?
So it works in two different places with tirzepatide, and semaglutide works in one place. Okay, so two is better than one, if we really want to say it. You're probably going to lose more weight. You're probably going to have more appetite suppression
on the Zepbound.
And you're going to have, an increased sensation of being full sooner.
Right.
And then probably the crave addiction type behavior is squashed. Let's talk about.
It wasn't squashed with the Ozempic. I could smoke all I wanted with Ozempic.
Right.
On Zepbound, I'm literally about 1/10 of my smoking consumption.
Because there's receptors.
And I'm not enjoying it. I'm doing it as habit and holding on. I am not enjoying it.
And the reason for that is that what happens when we do pleasurable things? Well, we have a dopamine reward center in the brain. Okay? You have it's called the VTA. I'm not going to even get into the scientific name for you. VTA produces dopamine. You smoke a cigar, Richard's brain says, God damn, that's good. Dopamine surge. Goes to the nucleus accumbens. Nucleus accumbens says, wow, that really feels good. Let me tell the frontal cortex, tell us to smoke another cigar. That feels good. Now let's take another drug that we're both familiar with, meth. Okay. So meth will take that dopamine amplification and crank it up 10 times that of even cocaine.
Right.
So you get this massive surge of dopamine. That's why people that use methamphetamine are hooked almost immediately. Because there's nowhere else. There's no other substance that is going to give that poof of dopamine. So now along comes the dopamine traffic cop, which is semaglutide, tirzepatide. They come along and they squash. I'm not going to get scientific here. They kind of squash and temper that dopamine response.
Okay.
So you don't get that surge. And they also do a reset in the brain. So where if a meth addict, their brain is flooded, rewired, and to get to a place where if we looked at brain imaging to say that their signaling was the same as a non-user, that is going to take an awful long time. And for these drugs, tirzepatide in particular, we see a resetting of the dopamine system in a much more timely fashion. So that's why when you're doing these behaviors that normally gave you, boom, a surge of dopamine, you're not getting that nearly as much.
And by nearly as much, you mean not at all?
No, you're still getting it for sure.
I'm not getting it.
Mm-hmm. So you're a sensitive, good responder.
I don't smoke cigarettes. I only smoke cigars.
Okay.
But that's only because, I don't live in a trailer.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I don't really know the answer to this. Is when you wear a nicotine patch or you use nicotine gum?
Absolutely.
Okay. When you use that, do you find when you're on that medication that it doesn't have as much of an effect?
No. The patch clears up my head first thing in the morning because I'm foggy. And the nicotine's actually good for you if the delivery system is appropriate. Smoking is the worst.
Right.
Okay, but a patch is good. Gum is fine. Okay. And it helps me wake up in the morning with my coffee.
Yeah, I mean, the nicotine gets a bad rap from the delivery system.
And my fish oil. I do fish oil, the patch, and my coffee with a little lion's mane in it, and I'm perfect.
But you don't find that when you use the nicotine patch or nicotine gum that you get less of a calming sensation or a reward feeling from using that once you've been on that medication?
I've never gotten a reward feeling other than my head clears up so I can think. First thing when I wake up in the morning, my head is very foggy.
Right.
And it's always been that way. So if I need to do something important at 8 o'clock, I'm waking up at 4.
Right.
Just so I can be completely clear and ready to go.
Yeah, makes sense.
From early research and clinical observations, where does this look most promising so far?
I mean, I think number one, let's just talk about obesity, right? So to me, obesity is still looking at addiction because Overeaters Anonymous is not losing members anytime soon. So America has an obesity problem. We have over a 50% of Americans, despite these drugs being out there on the market, available, prices coming down, is obesity isn't going away. So, these drugs, beyond just people not being able to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet in Caesars and sit there for 4 hours stacking 4 plates, it also is decreasing that compulsion and food noise, which to me is the torture. Because people that truly cannot control, whether it's food, whether it's nicotine, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cocaine, methamphetamine, it's the noise in their head and the compulsion to use. And look, you're way more familiar with the other external factors, your lower companions, environmental, everything else that's going to trigger you to use. But decreasing that noise in the brain is huge.
Have you seen any findings in studies or patient feedback that genuinely surprised you?
100%.
Like?
I'll give you a story of just one person.
Okay.
So this was a guy, a very wealthy client, was in treatment, alcoholic, cocaine, sex addiction, and he was overweight, had prediabetes. I started digging down into his health history, which is what we do at Carrara. We try to tune people up medically, diving deep into their medical history, surgical histories, looking at their habits in terms of exercise, diet, everything. And this guy was a total wreck. And to be able to, I put him on the medication essentially because his hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your blood sugar control, was in diabetic range. And I knew he wasn't going to take medications every day. I said, I'll inject you once a week. He was one of the first, he was like almost patient zero at Carrara.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I know who that is. Go on.
Maybe you do.
Oh, I do.
And
he's doing fantastic.
Fantastic.
Okay.
After the first, I would say 2 injections, And again, one thing to keep in mind is when you look at starting doses of these medications and you look at tirzepatide and they tell you 5 milligrams is a starting dose, you put somebody on 5 milligrams, they are going to be miserable.
Oh, miserable. Would you have me on 2.5?
2.5 and you were miserable, right?
At the beginning.
Right. I've had clients
Well,
on
in all fairness, I was miserable because I couldn't eat at the beginning. And at the beginning, for me, what felt like depriving was I liked the chewing. I want to eat something. And when I didn't eat all day, I was like, I wasn't hungry, but I was like, I want to eat something.
Right.
And remember when I called you and I started eating too much and I literally hurt myself.
Yeah.
Right? And you told me it was because, why?
Stomach gets full. You know, you can't process food as quickly and easily on top of all the receptors in your brain that are telling you like slow down, eat less.
And after that, okay, I've been really good, you know, and now I'm on the 3.5 because I got used to the 2.5.
Right. Yeah. And that's still a baby dose. You're still well below what was considered the starting dose.
I don't need to be on anything over 3.5.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's perfect.
Right. So that, you know, I think, again, like dosing and working with patients, it's really important that you have somebody that's clued into you, that doses you in a way where you're not going to walk away completely. Because I've seen clients that have done 5 milligrams out of the gate and are sick for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you can't.
You know, so this particular client started him at 2.5. We did that for a couple weeks, increased him to 5. And the first thing he said was like, I'm not, like, all of a sudden the noise around alcohol is gone. I'm not even thinking about it.
Right.
You know, and we'll use, you know, we have drugs for addiction that try to naltrexone.
Do you know we're the only ones doing the GLP-1s? I mean, we've been doing it now 2 years, okay? But there's not another treatment center that's been using these GLP-1s, not one.
I'm surprised by that.
Why?
Because I would think that at this point, especially with the day, I'm sure after this week, where Washington Post, Women's Health, CNN, MSNBC.
No. You don't know these people the way I do. Let me tell you something. The science is always 15 years ahead of the practice. These guys won't even be using these for another 2 years.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding. That's how
in-
far back. We innovate here, which is why we did it 2 years ago. Okay?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, I think like the one thing I heard all the time was it's off label, it's off label, it's off label. I'm like, we use drugs off label all the time. And let's talk about what we're doing here.
No. Before you do that, I want you to give examples because we use off label all the time.
Sure. I mean, baby aspirin. I mean, we use baby aspirin for the prevention of cardiovascular disease and stroke and clot formation.
And that's not at all what it was made for.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So
Excellent
that's
example.
that's the one that always comes to mind for me. You know, Indocin, which is a drug that is an anti-inflammatory drug. We use it in the field of obstetrics for preterm labor, preterm contractions, because it works on the uterus and reduces them. There's not an indication for it, but we still do it. And it works.
What was it used for? What was it made for?
It's used as an anti-inflammatory, like Advil, ibuprofen.
Okay, and you use it for the uterus?
Yep, we use it for relaxation of uterine contractions.
Really?
Yep. There's tons of examples of those.
Okay.
All right?
Good.
But what was I talking about?
have no clue.
Completely gapped.
We're okay.
All right. Yeah, but in using those medications, you know, and we're using them off label, what is the downside here? Okay, so we have somebody who's obese, who's going to eat themselves to death, drink themselves to death, use cocaine or meth or whatever other substance. You're going to tell me, you're going to convince me they've been in treatment 12, 15 times, doing the same route. You're going to tell me that it's not worth trying something different?
Oh, no.
That's off label?
No. This is
right.
This is as good as it gets. This is the one other than Narcan. Okay, which actually saves your life. Okay. This is the best drug I've seen for the treatment of drug addiction and alcoholism.
That's saying a lot coming from you.
Ever.
Wow.
More than Antabuse, more than Vivitrol, more than anything. This is the one. This is the one.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree. Our patients, our clients are staying sober.
I just, and much more than they used to be.
I know you're going to be out of business.
It's okay. I'll find something else to do. We'll solve the homeless crisis next, I promise.
I mean, yeah, it's true. I mean, beyond the just like, okay, so you stop them, snake oil salesman that sold like an oil that'll do something that'll cure everything in your body.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about it. You look at, in medicine, people with stacks of medications across the board. You have 4 things really that are going to kill you besides not wearing your seatbelt and guns and accidents and not wearing a helmet when you ride a bike, which are the most common ones. One of the most common ones. But cardiovascular disease, stroke, major adverse cardiac event. It's called MACE.
And your wife.
Okay, that's number 1. That's number 1.
Number 1 killer of men.
And women is cardiovascular disease and stroke. Okay, number 2. Cancer, lung cancer being number 1, colorectal, breast and prostate cancer, moving down the list. Number 3, if really you want to look at it, Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and the complications thereof of that. And number 4, metabolic diseases, which are what? Which are diabetes, is the big one. Then we get into women. More women die of hip fracture, osteoporosis than they do of breast cancer in this country. And that's a whole other podcast to talk about why that is and the epidemic of that. And I would love to go through that. So now we have a drug that you take once a week, okay, that has been shown to go, I'm going to say it in really simple terms that people understand. It goes to your arteries, and that lining of the arteries, which is so delicate that you want to keep nice and smooth, and the effects of smoking, environmental exposures that create these little dents and cracks in it that allow cholesterol to hang on to there and form a clot, a plug that then causes a heart attack. So you have a medication out there that's going to keep them smooth, that's going to keep them from spasming, that's going to lower your blood pressure.
That's what the GLP-1s do.
On top of, it's going to lower weight so that your heart isn't pumping and working as hard. So there goes number 1.
And your blood pressure isn't.
Right, and your blood pressure is going to come down. Number 2, we're going to go to cancer. For women, obesity lends itself to fat cells that produce estrogen that increase your risk of potentially, maybe a promoter of breast cancer. I'm really hesitant to say that, but there's probably a role in there. Uterine cancer, absolutely. And for men, prostate cancer, gastrointestinal cancer. So now you have a drug that's going to control weight, that's going to reduce that down, that's going to increase your insulin sensitivity, which in turn is going to lower inflammation. Lower inflammation in the body is going to equal less of a chance of cancer.
For sure.
Okay? Alzheimer's disease, dementia. New data coming out, ongoing trials that say that probably you have a reduced risk of plaque formation in the brain. Plaque formation is what we find in radiographic studies showing Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
You're kidding.
No. So if you get a diagnosis of dementia, of Alzheimer's disease, and you're 60 years old, it's like getting a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. There ain't shit you can do about it. You can try to slow the progress of it, but you got that diagnosis. What you do now is what's going to prevent that from occurring. A GLP-1 potentially for, I could sit here and say probably everyone would benefit from it, even in a microdose. I think that's where we're going to land in some way, but reduces that risk of plaque formation. Then we move to the 4th one, metabolic disease. Well, diabetes it's a layup, right? Increasing insulin sensitivity, less obesity, reverts right back to number 1, cardiovascular disease and stroke. So that's why diabetes is such a killer, because it not only has its own havoc on blood vessels, amputated feet, obesity, all the other things. But then it goes back to cardiovascular disease and is one of the major risk factors.
Nothing is all good.
Right.
Okay. There's nothing that's all good. No drug. Okay. What's the side effect of this?
Right. So, I mean, the biggest side effects are going to be gastrointestinal. So,
Gas?
Bloating, gas, nausea, obviously.
I'm none of those.
Right. But when you're beginning, those are the ones that people are going to mainly experience. Some people experience constipation. Some people experience insomnia. These are the ones that I see on a fairly regular basis.
That's
Tachycardia.
Not fair. That's not fair, I don't think. I don't think that's fair. Because you're seeing people right now in treatment. And when they get here, they're completely destroyed. And a lot of them don't have good sleep hygiene in the first place. So to say that, you're getting the feedback from these guys doesn't mean anything to me. It didn't affect my sleep. It didn't make me nauseous. It did take a couple days to get used to it, right? But I look forward to it every week. And I really take it now every 5 days because I feel like it
starts to wear off.
That's right.
Yeah, and you could go to twice a week. There's a lot of different ways.
I don't like shooting myself with the needle. I don't like it, so I just do it every 5 days.
Right, and that's fine. Yeah. Some people headache, another, then we're going to go down the line like you're watching a drug commercial and they're going to list every side effect known to man. Thyroid tumors was one that they saw in mice. Hasn't been replicated in human studies thus far. So, that's kind of where we land in terms of side effect.
The thyroid tumor is concerning.
But it hasn't been shown in humans. They've seen it in mice, but hasn't been shown in humans. And these drugs have been out a while now.
With the Trump administration's new pricing deals dropping costs from well over $1,000 a month to roughly $150 to $250 for many people, including some Medicare users, how much does that change access and the overall landscape?
I mean, you make it more affordable, then more people are going to have access to it. That being said, I still think the cost is definitely prohibitive. When we first started this, I would say if you didn't have
not for a drug addict, it's not.
Yeah.
Because if you can spend hundreds of dollars a day getting loaded, you can spend $150 to $250 a month.
Right.
Okay. To make you healthy, keep you off drugs, right? And I don't share that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, accessibility from the standpoint of people being able to see a provider, get a prescription, start the medication, stick themselves, like you said, you're apprehensive about it, stick themselves with a needle once a week. I still think accessibility is an issue. Certainly cost reduction is great. We have strategies to lower the cost using Lilly Direct, which is an excellent program. You sign up, you send the patient's information in. Lilly handles all the communication directly with the patient, mails them the medication. We've moved away now from these auto-injector syringes that you can't be flexible with the dose. So now it's just a vial. You draw up a dose. You like 3.5, you can draw that up. And they send you the syringes. They send it in a cold pack. So it's really great. It's very cost effective, and they do a really nice job with that. Now, the compounding area of it, which are, essentially non-FDA approved sources for getting these medications, compounding pharmacies are manufacturing their own versions of tirzepatide and semaglutide that,
Why would people want to do that instead of just going out and getting Zepbound?
Cheap.
Yeah, but it's not as good, is it?
I think there's reputable, pardon my French, compounding pharmacies where it is effective and it is good. And, it's an extra step of having to constitute it.
Okay, but if it's $150 to $250
yeah, that's going to be a game changer.
Okay, for the real stuff.
Right.
How much is it for?
It's about the same. It might be a little bit cheaper than that.
Okay, so why would anybody want to
I
do
think
that?
it's going to put them out of business. I think that was their goal. I don't know if it'll put them out of business. They have other things they can sell. They also do some interesting combinations. They'll do combinations with other peptides that potentially, work somewhat synergistically with these GLP-1s. Because one of the biggest side effects, let's talk about this, is people that lose weight is they'll lose muscle in a larger proportion than they will fat. And if you're not being counseled and taking the proper protein intake, complementing it with the proper supplements, and not doing weight-bearing exercise, you are going to lose muscle mass. Muscle is the largest endocrine organ in your body. It deals with sugar. It increases sensitivity to insulin. And it protects the bone from fracture, falls, which are really big killers of the elderly as we get older.
That's right.
So, using these drugs without to me, a supervised medical professional that's guiding you in terms of what you should be taking on top, how you should be exercising, how you should be, looking at metrics of fitness and longevity, then you're doing yourself a disservice, and so is the person that's just giving it to you.
This is why I hate the online pharmacies. Okay? You get these doctors that just rubber stamp everything, don't teach you anything. Okay? Aside from the fact that it's a breeding ground for cartels with the fat and everything else.
Right. And let's go to what we're talking about in addiction. This is your area of expertise. So you can take an addict and you can reduce the noise, but if they're not doing the work to heal.
That's right. Then they're just going to be dry and miserable, and they're not going to have their best life to look forward to because they didn't do the work.
And guess what? They're probably going to stop sticking them. If they really want to use, they're going to be non-compliant with the medication, and they're going to start using because the noise is going to return. I do see some people that are fixated on I want to get off it. I got to get off it, which is how we feel about drugs. I personally don't get it. You have a substance, I don't even want to call it a medication. It's actually a peptide that does all the things that I gave you that long-winded explanation of preventing you from dying from. Why are you fixated with coming off of it? Because you think medications are bad? I mean, we have medications out there.
I don't really think drug addicts think medication is bad.
I love it though when drug addicts say to me, I'm really careful about what I put in my body.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
I don't mean to make fun of people that say that either.
I do. I mean, I made fun of myself for it. I'm making fun of you for it.
I mean, they'll have track marks up and down their arm.
I
And
know.
I'm like, this is an injection you do once a week. I'm really careful about what I put in. I'll do my own research, doctor, and I'll get back to you. Hey, ChatGPT. I mean, it's pretty wild. So yeah, but if you come off, the worst thing someone can do is yo-yo. So when you lose a ton of weight, you don't exercise, you don't eat enough protein, you don't take creatine, aminos, other supplements, you're going to lose more muscle than you are fat. So now you've yo-yoed down. Now you start eating again. Guess what? More fat, less muscle. Then let's say you go back on the medication. Then you're going to lose a higher. So see where I'm getting at? You're constantly losing a greater ratio of muscle to fat.
Okay, so this is really simple because this has been a lot to unpack. Okay, but it's simple. If you're using this, you got to work out every day and you got to eat healthy. So basically what it is if you use it as a head start to get healthy, and then you stay on it for maintenance, what you're telling me is not only are you going to look better, but you're going to live longer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, if you're eating well and exercising and in an ideal body weight range, I mean, it's not that hard. Exercise is
Well, it is hard because last week I was on an all ice cream diet, Kenny.
Well, that's
okay.
for you. So, I'm just telling you.
No, dude, I was so happy last week. Okay. And then it was like, I woke up this morning and I felt shitty and I'm like, you know what? This is done. I threw out all the ice cream in the house. I know I'm not perfect. This is horrible.
Cold Stone Creamery is.
Tell them what.
They're in
tell
mourning.
Tell them about the.
How many people out there can say, I got a Christmas card from Cold Stone Creamery. Dear Richard, thank you so much for your business. Signed, Felicia.
So nuts.
Richard calls Cold Stone Creamery and he gets a, hi Richard, you want the usual today?
I'm not kidding.
That's not a joke.
It's not a joke. And you beat me up for it for about 6 months.
I think it was a year.
It was a year.
I want to say this. I don't want to lose this point. There is no greater intervention to save your life than exercise. Period. I've been trying for 30 years as a medical doctor, an MD, to get my clients to exercise. It has been, for the most part, fairly futile.
Do you know what my favorite thing is? When you go to the facility and you work out with them and you went and you golfed with somebody else, and then you took somebody, what do you call it? Kite sailing?
Yeah.
Right? That was bitching.
Yeah.
It's like, I've never met another doctor ever that not only tells you what to do, but says, all right, come on, I'll show you how to do it. Let's go, you and me.
Walk the walk, man.
So cool.
What an awesome job. I mean, how lucky am I? I don't have to freaking wear a white coat and sit behind a desk and push prescriptions all day, and tell people what to do. Look, if you're a doctor out there and you're a fat ass and you smoke and drink and don't exercise, don't expect one patient to listen to a word you're saying. Right. Because you have to be we have to be the models of health and wellness.
You know what else drives me nuts?
I don't have enough time to tell you all the things that drive me nuts.
Okay, well, this drives me nuts. When you walk in and you do a deep dive on all their medications and you go, okay, this is no good with this is no good with that, that's why you're nauseous. Uh-huh. And it's like, the first thing, not just me, but all my clients are thinking is, why didn't my doctor tell me this? Why didn't my doctor look at all my medication to see why I was nauseous or why I wasn't feeling well, because these two medications didn't work well together?
Right.
Why don't doctors do that, especially now when it's all in the portal and all they have to do is look?
Right. Or let's go a step further. Why did my doctor give me all this crap to begin with versus just telling me I need to eat like this? I need to take these supplements in the morning and the evening.
Because people don't eat like that, man. That's why.
Well, I mean, I think it's important as medical leaders that we are in a preventative mode. We've learned how to treat disease. It's boring. Treating disease and cutting people open and taking out tumors and putting them on medications, that's all, reactive medicine. Preventative medicine has never been more available and simpler than it is now.
This has been really good, the GLP-1s for addiction, and people are just starting to figure this out. Okay, what's next?
Right, so what's next is you don't like taking a injection every whatever. If I tell you do it twice a week, so every 3.5 days. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you a little story. So when HIV came out, I told you the story in our own personal space. So when HIV came out, a lot of reason why people died was because they couldn't stick to a 6 times a day, tens of medications to take each time. Compliance was low. That's how we started this talking about the oral medication.
That's right.
Right? Now we have PrEP, which is a single injection. It's pre-exposure prophylaxis. They take an injection. I want to say, I'm having a brain fart, 6 months is what I'm thinking. It's not my field, but I believe it's every 6 months. Mm-hmm. So twice a year, you get an injection that prevents you from getting HIV and dying of AIDS. What we're going to see with these drugs eventually, oral, are we going to go oral? I'm less concerned about that versus you're going to get an injection and it's going to last you once a month. You're going to have a little meter that you wear that's going to monitor your blood sugar, probably adjust their end. We already have those for insulin. But for a preventative type medication, maybe that's what's going to come down the line. Maybe it's a patch. Who knows? But the delivery system to me, and then we'll get more targeted and saying, Richard, you want to quit smoking? This particular drug works really well on whatever the dopamine smoking center is in the brain. This one's for Coke. This one's for alcohol.
Let me ask you a question. With the GLP-1s, if you don't exercise, right? We've already discussed the dangers of that, okay? But what happens, we're using sometimes testosterone therapy too, aren't we? How are you...
That's such a good question.
Yeah. How are you doing that with the clients?
And that's all about going back to the muscle thing, right? Because we get older and we get declines in hormone. Men do as well as women. Women have been deprived of HRT for the last 2+ decades because of one crappy trial, the WHI trial, that came out and looked at risk of breast cancer and saw 10 more cases in 100,000 women. The study was flawed. It was skewed, but it freaked people out and it changed the face of what I do. And women were denied hormone replacement therapy for 2+ decades. Those women are going to have fractures, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, stroke, Alzheimer's disease, dementia. So when we're taking these drugs, we just said the muscle is the largest endocrine organ in the body. I'm getting excited now. So for men, I want them on creatine. I want them on doses of creatine that are not like a single scoop. We're looking at, 10 grams, maybe 15 grams a day, not only for athletic performance, 10 to 15% boost, but also there is creatine in the brain. Creatine creates ATP, which is energy, cellular energy. And we know that creatine in the brain gets depleted, especially when you're sleep deprived. So creatine, amino acids, protein powders. And then for men, when appropriate, testosterone therapy.
How do you give it to them?
Testosterone therapy as an injection is painful for some people. It is somewhat of a hurdle. So I have one compounding pharmacy I use and trust that will do a high dose cream. And then I'll do injectable as well too. I'll do injectable as either.
I think the cream doesn't work. Does the cream work at all?
I think, I would say I'll get some younger guys that definitely have evidence of testosterone insufficiency that, whether it's placebo or not, I don't think so. I think they definitely get a tiny boost, which maybe in those people I want. I don't want my patients. I don't want a 60-year-old guy to look jacked and like overly supplemented. I just want him to be lean. I want him to be strong. I want him to preserve muscle mass. No old person ever said, gosh, I wish I had more, I wish I didn't have as much muscle as I did. Women also need testosterone. Let's be clear. They need estrogen, they need progesterone, and they need testosterone. Women on testosterone supplementation have an up to 30% reduction in breast cancer. People are saying, but you're going to get tumors. You're going to get, now granted, over replacement would lead to oily skin, acne, unwanted hair growth. But that's not what we're looking at.
Because you're giving them basically a microdose.
Yeah, well, they're getting about 1/10 of the dose that men get.
Okay.
I think one thing that, you've prompted me to explain today is that, addiction is a multifaceted disease, whether it's food, gambling, sex and love, cocaine, meth, alcohol, opiates. And now we have tools that under proper medical guidance, we have a way, on top of all the therapeutic tools that at Carrara are the best in the world, that we have a way, and we didn't even get into like the lifestyle modifications that we make on people there, but we have a way of truly, truly keeping people sober and leading happy, healthy lives they're proud of. I'm going to cry. There's no better way to make a living.
Now you're going to make me cry.
It's true.
All right. Do it.
So lucky to get to do this. And I'm so happy to have the opportunity to be here today. What?
What was that?
What?
Do it.
Do what?
Look in the camera.
What do you want? I'm not going to say what you want me to say.
Why?
Because I won't do that.
Why?
You want me to say, see you next Tuesday?
I sure do.
I'm not doing it.
We'll leave it there. See you next Tuesday.
We're out of time. Please subscribe on YouTube, click the thumbs up, and leave a comment. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify and leave a rating and a review. And share the We're Out of Time podcast with others you know who will get value out of it. See you next Tuesday.